All right, good evening. Welcome to the municipality of South Dundas for its regular council meeting with its council team, staff, guests, media, and delegations online. For Wednesday, December 11th, 2024, I'd like to call the meeting to order. I have a resolution. Let it resolve that the December 11th council meeting in the municipality of South Dundas now be opened at 6 p.m. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Confirmation of the agenda. Are there any additions, deletions, or amendments to tonight's agenda? Seeing none, I have a motion. Let it resolve the council assembly approve the agenda as presented. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Number 3, disclosure of pecuniary interest in the general nature thereof. Seeing none. Number 4, adoption of minutes. I have a resolution for the meeting minutes of November the 20th, 2024. Any errors or omissions from those minutes? Seeing none, I have a motion to pass the minutes. Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Okay, we'll move to number 5. A, Habitat for Humanity. Brecken Cares is with us tonight. Welcome, Brecken.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor and Council. So I know a lot of folks here, but for anybody that I don't know, my name is Brecken Cares, and I am here on behalf of Habitat for Humanity, and I handle community engagement amongst other things for Habitat. I am also very proud to say that I live in this fabulous municipality. My kids go to school here. My husband coaches hockey for both the boys. Go Lions tonight at 7:30. Guess where I'm going after this? So I know firsthand what an amazing place it is to live, work, and play. But pretty much everyone knows that Habitat for Humanity builds houses. Our affiliate has been building homes for more than 25 years, and in that time, we've completed 21 homes, 3 of which were this year alone. This included our first semi-detached up in Maxville and our latest project in Ingleside. We've also been honored to build for 3 families in South Dundas, and 2 of those projects were on land very generously donated by this municipality. Obviously, we rely on the partnerships of our local governments for land donations and waived development fees. I'm here this evening to share our new program, but of course, we greatly appreciate the conversations that have already been open for future land donations for much needed local affordable housing. We are proud to be part of an internationally recognized organization. The Habitat for Humanity brand and entity exists around the globe and right here in SDNG. As one of 46 working affiliates in Canada, we have support from Habitat Canada, as well as fabulous working relationships with our sister affiliates. It also still seems that too many people don't know that we don't give these houses away. We sell the homes at fair market value, and we hold an interest-free mortgage for the family. This creates an equitable asset for the partner families, and their mortgage payments are used to fund more local affordable housing, making the program extremely sustainable. We also follow free land to make this possible. As I mentioned, we've already opened discussions regarding future land donations here in South Dundas, but please know that following free land is just one more way that we are able to make our organization sustainable. Are we noticing sustainability is key here? We practice it in all aspects of our agency, whether it be our build program, our restore, our remove project, and soon our critical repairs program too. But why does housing matter? I know I feel silly asking this because at this point in the national housing crisis, I think we all know there are too many answers to that one very loaded question. So let me throw some statistics at you, homeowner statistics for a bit of context. Now keep in mind these from StatsCan use Cornwall as a center point, but the rural statistics are similar, if not actually more intense. 11.8% of residents have identified that their homes are in need of major repairs. 3.2% say their home costs more than 30% of their household income, was not suitable for their situation, and needed major repairs. And 3.9% of homeowners are considered in core housing need. That is an astronomical statistic when you consider home ownership is supposed to be more sustainable. The fact that 9 in 10 Canadians believe there is a shortage of affordable housing in Canada really speaks to how dire this is overall. But when we work together to secure affordable housing on all levels, we see a wide scope of social issues be relieved at different levels. To date, we have moved 7 families out of Cornwall and area social housing. Of the 3 families to purchase their affordable homes in 2024, 2 were on the brink of homelessness. Kids do better in school, and parents go back to school or get better jobs. Overall family life and health improves, and food bank and other social service usage goes down. Our staff receive multiple monthly inquiries requesting help with a roof repair, a ramp, etc. I had a call a few weeks ago from a community service agency looking to help get a furnace sorted for a gentleman about to go through his second winter without heat. As we continue to see the impacts of the national housing crisis here more and more every day, we know we have to do more beyond building homes. We hear too often that people have to choose between something as crucial as food or hydro. How do you make that decision when you have something like the need to replace a furnace hanging over you as well? That is why we are launching a critical repairs program. This program already has been piloted by other Habitat for Humanity, so we've got a solid foundation. Adding this to our housing portfolio means we can expand who we are helping. Whether it's seniors, families, or other vulnerable populations, we are able to serve more people who are able and willing to partner with us. But what is a critical repair? By definition, it is something deemed essential for a resident to maintain a legal, safe, habitable home, but it can also be an accessibility modification. We've heard firsthand from a key stakeholder, Mark, that a program like this would be crucial for his mother. In his case, she's lucky to have her son nearby to help with much needed repairs, but not everyone has a Mark. With our critical repairs program, our team will assess projects to make sure that the repair or modification is appropriate for the home. Then we complete the work. The homeowner will have their mind at ease knowing they are working with an invested and trusted community partner. The intent of this is to not cause financial burden. We recognize that these homeowners will have some form of equity in their home. Much like our home build program, we are the builder and the bank. Eligibility criteria is still being finalized. However, key elements will include that the home must be the primary resident of the owner must be considered low income, and I don't know if that will be according to LIM or LICO yet, and property taxes must be up to date. There must also be insurance on the home, and the owner must be willing to partner with Habitat for Humanity. For example, we want to be able to help seniors with decades of home ownership under their belts who likely have a lot of equity, but not have the cash at hand to pay for often unexpected critical repairs. Not only will we be able to resolve health and safety deficiencies in affordable ways, but we will also be able to give the homeowner a sense of pride in maintaining their dignity while staying safely in their own home. Much like our homeownership program, this is not a handout. Homeowners will be responsible to pay back an interest-free loan to Habitat, which will then be used towards other affordable housing projects. Sustainable. But if this would cause financial strain, we can make other arrangements such as a lien. Project costs will be capped at $12,000 each, but of course not all work will max out those budgets. The number of completed projects will be dictated on the total value raised through our appeals like this and our sponsorship package. We have already received support from the United Way in the amount of $25,000 and a gold level sponsorship from Cornwall Toyota. We are also making appeals to all of the neighboring townships, the City of Cornwall and the United Counties. Raised money will be used to offset construction-related costs, and goodness knows there's enough of those these days. So why am I here asking for $10,000 tonight if the project will self-fund? Because like everything in this world, we need to seed the pot. The long-term sustainability of this project will mean we will be able to offer critical repair support to our community for years to come. But if we don't have the money to start, well, we can't get started. Building new affordable housing is only one part of the solution to the housing crisis. It has been estimated, and this statistic floors me, it has been estimated that for every new affordable housing unit being built, 10 are being lost. As my 11-year-old would say, that math doesn't math. We need South Dundas's help to preserve as much affordable housing stock as possible. Please keep in mind that any support received from South Dundas or any other respective township will be earmarked for those local projects. And without local government support, we can't guarantee that we will be able to complete said local projects. As I've mentioned, I live here, right up the road just north of Williamsburg. I love the fact that I get to say we own Aidan McIntosh's old farm, that our youngest son was named for him. We all value tradition, family, and hard work. I know that out here in the counties, we are extremely proud people, and we tend to do a lot for ourselves, or I get my husband to do it. But it's okay to ask for help sometimes, and we want to be a part of that help while helping local residents maintain the pride that we know so much about. All of this means that we will be keeping people in their affordable homes safely and for longer. And with your help, we can do that one critical repair or two at a time. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Ms. Cares. The $10,000, would you, the way you phrased it, that would be seed money, a one-time,
Correct.
that's what you're asking, is a seed money?
Correct.
Certainly a different request than an ongoing funded program. Obviously, social housing is a big topic at county level as well, as I'm on a committee. How much work does your organization do with United Way and the Last Resort Fund and or the Social Development Council out of Cornwall SDNG?
So we don't specifically deal with the Last Resort Fund because we aren't a stopgap. However, we have constant open communication lines with Juliet and her team, which is absolutely fabulous. In fact, whenever they were setting up the temporary facility in Cornwall, we were able to support them with furniture and stuff like that out of the Restore, which was really great. They've supported with the $25,000 because, much like everyone else, the United Way recognizes that we need to support affordable housing in different ways. We've sat with the Social Development Council. I've been with Habitat for over 8 years now, and some of the first community meetings I ever took part was with the Social Development Council. So we've been very lucky to be at the table with them and have those discussions. And our Family Services Coordinator works with them. We also have a member of the Cornwall and Area Social Housing Team who sits on our Family Services Committee so that we're able to have direct communication that way.
Very good. Similar, House of Lazarus, obviously more supportive North and South Dundas.
Yes.
Be similar.
Yes, very much so.
Okay. Other comments, questions?
No, good presentation, appreciate it.
Thank you.
No direct questions.
Councillor Smith?
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. Just something that just came to me. So we are coming into budget time now, and so we'll consider that in our grants and donations moving into 2025. Would there be any idea if we did decide to donate some or all of the 10,000, that money would stay within South Dundas area, or would it be spread out amongst the whole catchment area?
Through you, Mr. Mayor, Councillor Smith, every single dollar would stay here for South Dundas-based projects. The other part, which obviously we can never guarantee because things change, however, it is our intent that if we were doing a project in Morseburg, we would use local suppliers for any building supplies or anything like that to obviously keep costs down and support the local economy because we understand how important that is. We've also been very, very grateful to have our local suppliers support our build program throughout the years too, so we owe them that back as well.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for being with us tonight, and Merry
Fantastic.
Christmas, happy holidays.
Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Cares.
All right, off to the road.
Okay, moving on to 5B, CBCL, the Calhoun Bridge Replacements Schematic Design Report. Colin Jim is with us. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
I'm going to try and share my screen here now. So can you let me know when you see it? Let's try this here. Well, you probably just see a map, do you? Or
We have the picture of the bridge.
yeah, okay. How about now? Is it the presentation there?
Yep, it is.
Okay, thanks, Mr. Mayor and council for having us. I do want to commend the previous speaker on a pretty informative talk there, but I think she's already left the building, so maybe those words are lost. But yeah, I'm Colin Jim. I'm with CBCL Limited. I'm the project manager for the replacement of the Calhoun Road Bridge, also called the Nash Creek Bridge. I'm also joined by Sarah Vandergeest. She's our bridge engineer out of our Ottawa office, also the lead engineer on the project. So if there's any technical questions that come down the road, I'm going to be passing the buck off to her. But basically the point of the presentation, I think, is just to give you an overview of the options that we looked at for the replacement of this structure, and I guess some background as to why it's being replaced. Quickly, I'll go through this quick. We're CBCL Limited. We're a multidisciplinary engineering firm. Do a lot of different things, but just highlighting here the disciplines that are involved in the project, which is our bridges group, our water group, and our transportation group. We also have a geotechnical component within that was subcontracted out to a local firm. Location is, as you see on the map, I'm out of our Halifax office, so you guys would be more familiar with the location than I would, but hopefully the map does the speaking. It is a low volume road. I think the annual average daily traffic is somewhere around 50 vehicles per day. So why replacing the bridge? I think regular inspections are being done, and the latest inspection classified it as in fair condition, which is one of the lower condition ratings with a rating of 63. The barrier is also deemed insufficient by current standards, and obviously, as you see from the photo, there's a load restriction on the bridge, limited to 16 tons for a single axle or double axle vehicle. It was on the prioritization list for 2026. So our scope of work was generally to do a site inspection or investigation. We reviewed alternatives for replacement, which is what I'm going to present here today, and ultimately that culminated in a schematic design report, which we submitted a month or two ago. Following, I guess, approval to proceed based on our recommendations, we'll move into detailed design, prepare construction documents, and then provide some assistance during construction. So I'll ramble through these pretty quickly here. The design criteria that we used in our analysis was to make sure it meets the Canadian Bridge Code, MTO's Road Safety Manual, and MTO's Drainage Design Standards. Maintain the existing width of the bridge. We have to acknowledge that there's utility lines on both sides of the road. Consider that through construction. We have to improve or maintain the waterway or the hydraulic opening. We have to minimize any changes to the road grade or elevations and their subsequent impact to adjacent properties. We did a geotechnical investigation, so we must consider the geotechnical conditions and the construction. We want to do what we can to minimize the duration of the road closure and the associated detour. So the investigations that took place as part of our preliminary work was a geotechnical investigation. We did a hydrologic and hydraulic analysis. We did evaluate the barriers and what the future needs for the barriers are based on bridge codes and MTO's typical requirements, and we completed surveys, both topographic and bathymetric. So we looked at 3 options, and I'm just going to do an overview of what those options are. First option was a conventional type bridge. So this is a bridge with typical girders and a concrete deck with barriers built on abutments. So the pros to this one is it can result in a pretty long service life, 75 years or more. It's similar configuration to the existing structure, so nothing drastically new there. Can eliminate expansion joints, which are a maintenance item, and it's pretty a familiar construction type for contractors. The cons are it is the most expensive option, and it is the longest schedule. I'll discuss in a second, but it also will be the deepest structure, so meaning it would require a raise in the road by approximately, I think it was 800 or 900 millimeters, which is close to 3 feet, which could be fairly significant. It's pretty complex for such a small span, a small river, and the small scale of the structure for its type probably has the potential to drive up unit prices, so there's risks associated with that. The option 2 that we looked at was a modular bridge, and I think this was looked at because I think it was done upstream at the Taylor Road location. So the pros to this option is it has the potential to accommodate longer spans. It is a prefabricated structure, so it's pretty simple delivery and has different types of installation capabilities. One of them is launching, where you sort of push the bridge across, which that would eliminate the need for a crane. And as I mentioned, there was success in the project upstream on Taylor Road, which uses a similar type of structure. The cons are it is more expensive than the option I'll present next, so it's the second most expensive option. Because it is a prefabricated structure, there's potentials for delays in supply and delivery. The bridge is delivered to site in pieces, so larger staging areas are required. And it is what's known as a modular bridge, so it comes in 10-foot sections. So you can't really, you can only customize it so much. So you basically need to, the span needs to be in 10-foot increments. So you can't really optimize the span based on the modules. The final option that we looked at is a precast concrete structure, which sort of, I'm not sure, are these pictures blocking your view, or is it only me that can see that?
We can see.
Okay, good. Yeah, so this is a precast concrete structure. It is the least expensive option. Also has the shortest construction schedule. The concrete generally would have less maintenance compared to the steel options that were looked elsewhere, and it also has the least elevation change. The only con that we sort of identified is that there's can be sometimes joints between the panels. So I guess the main thing everybody wants to know is the cost. So looking at let's see here, I can pointer. So the conventional bridge, which is the first option we looked at, capital construction is approximately 2.9 million. The modular bridge, which was option 2, is closer to 3. They're relatively close to, they're similar, but the last option, the precast rigid frame that we looked at, was approximately 2.6 in capital costs. Life cycle costs were also cheapest for the concrete, the third option, this one right here. The main reason being is the steel options have coating maintenance that has to take place, and those options also had a separate deck system that would also require maintenance. So ultimately, the precast rigid frame option earns the cheapest, both in capital and life cycle costs. Just going to go back quickly and just mention that this is a 3-sided box that we're presenting here. We did also look at a 4-sided closed box, but I can describe later. The geotechnical conditions aren't very great. A lot of soft soil here. So these bridges are going to be supported by piles, and that's not really conducive to a 4-sided box, which generally speaking are cheaper options, but when you need to use piles, it sort of makes it a little bit more expensive. Construction schedule, I already mentioned. Option 1 is the longest. That was the conventional bridge. Option 2 and 3 are around the same, at around between 6 and 8 weeks. So just summarizing, option 1, the conventional, had some issues. Basically, option 3, the precast rigid frame, sort of fared best in all the categories: cost, construction schedule, site impact. And what I mean by site impact is raising the grade of the road has the potential to impact adjacent properties, maybe tying in with driveways and things like that. So it has least impact to adjacent properties and site. And aesthetics, I guess you could sort of argue they're all close to the same, but we did rank the concrete one the highest. So ultimately, we recommended option 3 to be moved forward with. And we did prepare a drawing for option 3. As you can see here, there's a precast rigid frame, and you have supported by piles at each end. We do have wing walls going at the side to support the adjacent road. So that is it. I don't know if there's any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Jin. Any questions from the council team? Councilor Smith.
Yeah, thank you for your presentation. So we were originally hoping, I think, to go with box culverts, correct? Just for price savings, so, and you're recommending that we should not do that because of the unstable soils condition?
Yeah, we did look at the box and part of the RFP when we originally started the work, described using a box culvert as the cheapest option and didn't even really need to look at options. They wanted to go with the box. But after completing the geotechnical investigation, the geotechnical engineer recommended that the structure needed to be on piles, which would drive the costs up to dry piles in the middle of the waterway significantly to the point where it's more expensive than these other options. He did mention, and we didn't evaluate this, something that could be looked at, if we move the crossing to a different location, potentially a box culvert could be utilized. But that wasn't, I guess, part of this particular scope, and it would have much further reaching effects in the fact of having to change the location of the road and things like that. But the short answer to your question is yes, it's the geotechnical conditions and the stability and the strength of the soil that precluded the use of the box culvert in this location.
Any other questions for Mr. Jen? I have one just maybe for Manager Hyman. Just the timeline on for us to make decisions. When would it come back to us for picking an option and then?
So through you, Mayor Broad, so I guess essentially for tonight, we're more picking the option on what route we would need to go so they can do their construction design. And then it would kind of sit on the shelf until we're ready to decide that, yes, it's time, either based off of OSIM or based off of maybe, as I was just talking to Treasurer Stewart, maybe if funding came down or opened up, then we would be what you could consider tender ready or project ready, that this would definitely be a project that would be part of the scheme. But this is where we're trying to get to. We're trying to get it so the drawings are complete, so that when it's time, we're ready. We're not having to do all the work that CBCL has done, kind of scrambling.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Broden. I just had a question, like, I'm looking at the cost of, the three options, and there is a little bit of a spread here of 500,000 between a conventional bridge and a ridge frame, but I'm just wondering about constructability and diversion ditches. Is there one that would outweigh the other in terms of the incidental costs that we're not seeing in the report that would kind of formulate one over the other?
The intent, and Sarah, you can jump in and correct me if I'm wrong here, but the intent is these costs that are presented include water control and sort of constructability issues. It includes, like, for the erection of the bridge, the construction of the bridge and water control as well. Sarah, go ahead.
Yes, yeah, we have mobilization, demob, environmental protections, and traffic control and dewatering all built in to the final cost that you see.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that. I'm not sure your traffic management costs will be very high, but thank you.
Yeah, Councilor Ward.
Thanks, Mayor. So I have a few questions, and they might be more for Director Hyman than for the team online. So I guess my first question is, Director Hyman, maybe you can just let us, how many people live on Calhoun Road?
Through you, Mayor Broad, there could potentially be 6. I don't know the exact number offhand, but it's not a large number of houses. However, that is a busy road during the summer construction season for traffic getting from Beckstead to
County Road 8.
County Road 8. It is a highly traveled road, although the numbers don't represent it for daily traffic. You see more dump trucks coming from quarries and that type of activity on it.
Can I ask this
Yeah,
question?
of course, go ahead.
Is there an alternative route from Calhoun to that for those trucks?
I'd have to bring the map up.
There is.
Leave that with me.
Okay. Where I'm going with this, Mayor, if I can.
Yeah, no, of course. I mean, obviously,
Continue.
it's south or
Yeah.
to the south, right, is the closest alternate route.
So I think my comment is, and I think it's a discussion we're going to be having with Mr. Nelson rather shortly, is level of service. And we just replaced Taylor Road Bridge, and we're paying for that still. And I don't know how many houses are on that road, but not very many. And it's just, these are going to be tough discussions to have. We already had the engineer come earlier this year to talk about how much money we have to invest in our bridges. And I just want to make sure when we look at these prices that, you know, that for 6 houses, we're going to spend, you know, a couple $1 million. So I'm not debating the fact tonight. I just want to raise the point that I think that should be a consideration, that if we're starting to replace bridges, I know other municipalities are stopping up and closing some areas, so.
You just add on to your point, South Glengarry gave a presentation in our spring session for the counties about they were considering and or were closing a couple bridges based on, you know, the asset management plan, volume of traffic, et cetera. So it's something we should consider, right? We should look at all the options, Yeah, Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, and I agree. When I was looking at this plan, a question I really had was, and it's more for Jeff and the research is, you know, we've got ag on both sides of the drain. So is there, you know, is there a need for the farmer to access one side or the other? Is a question. I mean, we always go through that. I mean, the ag community is our biggest employer in South Dundas, and you know, a lot of times we do have roads, and it is for that purpose, regardless if there's only a small handful. So we should really, to your point, Councillor, I think we should get a good handle on that before we actually decide moving forward one way or another, because, you know, if there's a reason we need to keep the road because of access and ag use and traffic, I think that's a reason to keep it. But if there's a way to that the traffic can be diverted and there's little or no impact, I think that is part of our responsibility to look at all that as well. So I think moving forward, I think we should perhaps have that discussion. And I think you're right. I think it's a part of a bigger plan in terms of an asset management plan.
Councillor Ward?
I just asked a subsequent to Director Hyman, if I may. I just have one more question, Jeff, and I don't need the answer tonight, maybe to come back with, is the box culvert option. I understand that needs piling because the soil is soft, but is that based on a specific load requirement? Like, are we making that bridge for the assumed traffic? Like, is there an option to go with a lighter bridge and then reduce the load on the road?
So through you, Mayor Broad, I do have CBCL on here. They can further add the technical side. This would be a full load bridge, so there essentially be no restraints to the load going across it. There is no base there. Like it's truly a marsh land. So that's where the piles come into play, based off of, there's just no structural strength to it. To answer your question, there's 7 houses on that road, and the detour road around would be County Road 18 to the south, or Beckstead Road continues north and loops back up around to the County Road 8 would be your 2 alternative routes. But I will allow CBCL to comment more on the engineering side if they could.
Sure. Well, I can say that our analysis was based off of a full highway load, 60 odd tons. The geotechnical engineer that we subcontracted to, I mean, that's sort of what his recommendations were based on. So I can't really speak with confidence whether or not, I know that it could take, you could design for a lesser load and have a bridge that's permanently posted with a sign saying this is your load restriction on this particular bridge. And yes, we could certainly design that for less piles, so that would decrease the cost, but it would not eliminate the need for piles. So it'll still be an expensive bridge for the size of the bridge, I guess, generally speaking. I'm not sure if that gives enough information. I mean, it's hard to just, go ahead.
Fair answers for tonight on our first really discussion point of this particular Cahoon Bridge. Any other comments or questions at this point? All right, saying none, thank you, Colin, thank you, Sarah, for joining us tonight. Appreciate all the answers, and have a good evening.
Sure, take care. Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much.
Okay, we'll move to delegation 5C. So for Fire Master Plan from Jervis Emergency Consulting, we have Michelle with us, and Fire Chief Jeremy Eldred Hughes is also online as well. Good evening, Michelle.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thanks
and-
for having me.
And we can hear you loud and clear, and thank you for rescheduling from our last technical difficulties.
No, not a problem. Happy to be here tonight. I'm going to jump in. Can you see my screen okay?
We can see you clear.
Oh,
Here we
how
go.
about now?
No, okay, we can see the plan now. Yep.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, so as you know, I'm Michelle Jerva. I am your lead consultant for the Community Risk Assessment and your Fire Master Plan. So the purpose of a municipal fire service is to protect the life, property, and environment within the community, providing fire suppression, emergency response, and public safety services. Its responsibilities extend beyond traditional firefighting, encompassing a wide range of activities to enhance community resilience, preparedness, and safety. So really our traditional HBO series, they're pretty elaborate, but we are much more than getting cats out of the trees and putting out house fires these days. So tonight we're going to look at and review the Community Risk Assessment and your Fire Master Plan. The Community Risk Assessment is a legislative requirement where the Fire Master Plan is not. The Fire Master Plan is created to provide a roadmap to address the community risk and ensure operational effectiveness and sustainability. The Fire Protection and Prevention Act is Ontario's key legislation for governing fire safety, prevention, and emergency response. It requires municipalities to establish fire protection services tailored to their communities, conduct risk assessments, and provide public fire safety education. The FPPA empowers the fire chiefs and the departments to enforce fire-specific laws and regulations, issue orders, and impose penalties for non-compliance. The Office of the Fire Marshal oversees the service compliance, sometimes will conduct fire investigations under certain circumstances, and supports the municipality through their field advisors. So the CRA is a process used to identify, evaluate, and prioritize the risk within the community. It involves analyzing the data on demographics, infrastructure, local hazards, and historical emergencies to identify potential threats to life, property, and environment. By assessing risk based on their likelihood and consequences, the CRA helps prioritize mitigation strategies, resource distribution, and public education efforts. There are 9 mandatory profiles to assess for this community risk assessment. And as a result, for South Dundas, there were 26 critical findings. 8 were high risk, 16 were moderate, 2 were low risk. These are outlined on page 32 of the Fire Master Plan, as well as throughout the CRA. They are completely normal levels. The high risk is nothing to be concerned about right now. It's all options or something that we can mitigate moving forward. As mentioned earlier, your CRA is the foundation to the Fire Master Plan. So as we build out that Fire Master Plan, additional data specific to the fire service is collected. The data is then further analyzed to help shape and understand where the fire service is in its current state. The understanding of the fire service is further refined based on the input received from your stakeholders. Your community knows your community best. Your firefighters know your fire department best. All this is pulled together for the final report and the recommendations. So the final report is designed to help guide the next steps for the service, be in the immediate, the short term, or the long-term future. The findings for the South Dundas CRA and the Fire Master Plan itself have resulted in 24 recommendations for Council's consideration. The first 3 findings highlight that there are numerous vacancies within the administration team. This results in significant and unsustainable workload for the fire chief. The recommendations are made to support the chief and the organizational sustainability by adequately fulfilling the roles. Similar to the previous slide, the fire chief is fulfilling roles required to meet legislative requirements. That's that FPPA, the Fire Prevention Protection Act. With fire prevention being the first line of defense and the requirement of the municipality by that legislation, the recommendation is made to increase staffing to support these tasks. In addition, the Community Emergency Management Coordinator, which is another mandated role, is recommended to be assigned to a fire prevention officer. This again will assist with the workload of the fire chief. Recommendation number 6 speaks to the trend seen across the nation. The volunteer workforce is significantly declining. An aggressive recruitment and retention strategy should be created to prepare and sustain a composite operation. Firefighter health and safety must always remain a priority, and as such, a committee should be formed to adequately support the members of the service. Now, regarding your fire stations, all 3 stations have issues that impact various health and safety standards. To remain fiscally responsible, a cost analysis should be completed to determine if updates to the facilities are reasonable or if a new build is required. If a new build is being considered, amalgamation of stations and other first response agencies should be considered. Amalgamation of stations should be determined based on data and projected community growth. This data is not currently available, and I'm going to come back to this data point in a few more recommendations. Your fleet management should be specific to the fire service, and it should be considered that an aerial unit would be included in your future plans. The lack of a secondary compressor has potential to significantly impact operations, and the backup system should be in place. Radio communications are critical in the fire service. Having compatible working systems ensures the safety of the firefighters. Communication failures have significant potential to contribute to devastating outcomes. We've seen it in time and time again in past firefighter fatality case studies. Equipment inventory highlights that the equipment currently available for the volunteers in your service does not support a sustainable operation identified that it is being provided in your established and regulating bylaw. So this means, really going back to this and speaking to it a little bit further, that if we're doing rope rescue, we need to have adequate ropes to do that rope rescue. Right now, we are not seeing that in the equipment log. There is significant concerns raised from the different stakeholders regarding outdated equipment and the lack of cross-training on the equipment. Streamlining your training and purchasing similar equipment will create, again, more operational efficiencies moving forward. It is also worth raising the alarm and quite concerning that South Dundas Fire and Emergency Services is performing water and rescue operations around water without any proper training, PPE, and equipment. There are no life jackets, which is a requirement for this service. This should be addressed immediately to prevent anything further happening. An update to the service delivery, again, needs to be completed and accurately reflected in your established and regulating bylaw. Similar to our previous slides, it is strongly recommended that a review of the services offered is completed and updated. Hydrants are critical for operations of the fire service, and to ensure proper pre-planning is in place, hydrants should be inventoried and inspected. There are multiple agreements with neighboring communities in place. For the most part, these are pay per use. The North Dundas one, however, has an annual fee that is charged regardless of being used or not. The recommendation is to explore the agreement and bring it back into alignment with others, potentially creating a cost savings for your department. These recommendations here, again, underscore the recommendation number 4, that, again, the fire prevention is a foundation of the fire service, and it must be highly functioning, and you need to fill these roles. Again, the fire need to fill the fire prevention staff and support your fire chief. It all comes back down to making sure we're meeting those mandates under the legislation. It is recommended under NFPA 1720 that you should have 6 firefighters within 14 minutes, 80% of the time for South Dundas. The current available data suggests that this may not be the current case. It is important to highlight that it is suggested that this is not happening. However, it really speaks to more your data management and what we were able to pull and look at. The available data is currently very limited and does not tell us the whole picture. The chief has implemented a new data and records management program, and it is a very proactive approach that will be able to provide a better understanding of success for South Dundas Fire and identify what our targets are and where we are meeting them or where we have an opportunity to enhance our operations. Again, the right data collection, these service standards can be further refined and measured. With the data and updated policy, South Dundas Fire can accurately determine if they are meeting these benchmarks. Again, just the findings, they speak to previous recommendations made about fulfilling the roles and making sure that we're using the right data. And our final recommendation included in the fire master plan is emergency management focused. Essentially, the current ERP, your emergency response plan, is outdated and missing crucial annexes. Additionally, there is no reference to corporate continuity planning as a whole, which is a little over and beyond the emergency response plan, but given the complexities and intertwining of them, would be advantageous to include it. Again, these things are going to affect your fire service in a large or complex emergency, and they should be updated annually. That was really quick going through it all because I want to make sure you all have an opportunity to ask the questions you'd like to ask. So with that, thank you very much, Mayor. I turn it back to you.
Thanks, Ms. Jerva, for your presentation and your work on the CRA. Sure, we'll have a few questions from the council team. I'll kick off with a couple. In reference to the fire states, the fire halls, what would be the trigger for us to, trigger a study or an opportunity to amalgamate the halls? What's the trigger to do that?
You want to be looking at where your calls for service are going and how many calls of service are being required of each station. Right now, there are different infrastructure pieces affecting the safety and the station designs. You also are dealing with your fleet management aspect, that the apparatus that you're purchasing, not by any other choice, it's just the nature of the apparatus these days, is much larger than what the halls are designed for. So you're in, a bit of everything going on for you guys right now. Your calls for service, they may not be where they traditionally were originally when those halls were designed. Those halls are no longer the right size for the vehicles. So when we're talking about amalgamation, I'd be using the data that the chief is already collecting in. How often are we getting calls for services in this area? Are we meeting those benchmarks? Do we have enough volunteers to support the system if we move a hall over here? And I would have a conversation with your stakeholders, such as your police and paramedic partners. Where are they with their equipment or their infrastructure, and is there an opportunity for cost sharing and amalgamation in that sense?
Yeah, and are there any other municipalities in Ontario doing that today?
Yes, there is. There's quite a few actually up in the far north that are looking at partnering with their OPP or their paramedic services for those amalgamations and cost sharings.
Very good. Questions? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Broad. I just want to own on here on a statement on the executive summary. It says, and I quote, "This plan aims to ensure the safety of residents, businesses, visitors, and firefighters, while also providing efficient and cost-effective solutions tailored to the municipality's unique context." I wonder if you could expand where in your report do you discuss cost-effective solutions that's tailored to our municipality?
Well, when we start looking at your equipment, the first thing, Deputy Mayor, that jumps out for me in this one is the aerial apparatus. It's recommended that you have an aerial given the size of your facilities and your infrastructure being built in the community, right? Your projected community growth. Now, procuring an aerial is going to be a $3.5 million operation. Now, if you look at your service agreements with your neighboring municipalities, they very much will probably be in the same situation. And there is an opportunity where perhaps instead of procuring your own aerial, you do a cost sharing and maybe procure the services for an aerial coming in, similar to a compressor, right? If you need a compressor or a secondary compressor, instead of buying a secondary one and having that cost solely on the municipality, is there an opportunity to work with a neighboring municipality or a private business partner to have a backup plan or a mitigation plan to remove that initial cost? Your ability to navigate your mutual aid agreements with the cost sharing doesn't just stop at firefighting. So if we look at a lot of your rescues or technical rescues, rope rescue, ice water rescue, confined space, trench, those are things that if you remove them from your service agreements, it's not that South Dundas is not providing them, it is that South Dundas is contracting them out. And that is where you would look at contracting with a larger municipality who has the manpower and the equipment to bring that to you for the limited amount of times you do require it.
It's a subsequent, so just, our surrounding municipalities are all of a similar size with paid part-time volunteers. The closest one is Brockville, which is 40 minutes out. By the time they respond, it's
Cornwall.
Cornwall is a half hour out. I mean, is that what you're kind of alluding to? It would be the larger Cornwall, Brockville municipalities that we would partner up with?
You could. There is an option. Again, it's the urgency of the emergency and what you would like to offer your community in risk pieces, right? So, for example, an ice water rescue. Well, you don't have a lot of time to wait for a 30, 40-minute call, right? So that is something that you would probably want your volunteer station to have the training for. Something such as a trench rescue is a little bit more time gracious, if you will, right? So you would have a little bit more flexibility. Your firefighters would be able to stabilize the scene instead of having to have all the resources to actually operate the scene. They would stabilize and then wait for them to come forward.
Okay. Another subsequent, please.
Yeah.
This is for Chief Jeremy. We talk about water rescue. I thought we got out of the water rescue. Level of service wasn't part of our mandate anymore.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, what we got rid of was the boat aspect of it, but there's still stuff happening within our municipality where we are technically doing some sort of form or type of water rescue. We've had 3 vehicles in ponds and creeks this year. That's a form of a water rescue. We had somebody fall off of a retaining wall down by the river. Just because you're not in the water, if you're close enough to the water, NFPA says that we should be wearing life jackets and. So there's a lot of different layers to these specialized rescues. And one other thing I'll speak to, just as an example with the aerial. So we know that our neighbors have called for Cornwall and they're not able to come. Brockville's not able to come. We currently are all in that similar boat. And we're currently at the county level having discussions on these different types of services and levels of services that are offered, and trying to figure out amongst ourselves kind of who can provide what service, and then we all share it. So maybe North Dundas has, hazmat. We have specialized rope rescue and aerial. South Stormont does all of the water rescue and ice water rescue, but keeping it within departments that are within 15 to 20 minutes from us. But we would still then have to be trained on the awareness level as well to get that call started and to be able to support those staff when they get here due to the number of staff that are required to operate it.
Mayor?
Sorry, subsequent again. Thank you, Mayor Broad. So do you think that should be the approach? It should be a regional approach on hiring full-time training officers and fire prevention officers versus it just being a municipal responsibility? And that's for Chief Hughes as well.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, I don't believe that is sufficient. I believe that's more of a Band-Aid approach. I know right now, just in our municipality, we could successfully have 2 prevention officers. The amount of buildings when you start inspecting, re-inspecting, court proceedings, and the time really, it really adds up. So for instance, if we were to say contract a fire prevention officer out from North Glengarry, that prevention officer, like we could easily have them 5 days a week. And it wouldn't be cost effective to now have a prevention officer driving around to multiple municipalities.
Other comments, questions at this time? Councillor Smith?
Yeah, through you, Mayor Broad. So just a couple of questions I had off of the presentation. It mentioned that we have fire stations that are not meeting health and safety standards. Is there a specific date where we have to make updates or changes to our stations to be compliant?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, there are certain checklists that we can use to outline the health and safety risks at the individual fire stations. The biggest thing coming forward is cancer prevention. So let's take Morrisburg, for instance. Through proper decon and stuff, that fire station should be outfitted with men and women's locker rooms with showers so that firefighters can decon properly. I believe the tagline is shower within an hour to get those carcinogens and stuff off. We should have, we don't have a washer in Williamsburg for gear. Even in my office in Morrisburg, every time somebody starts a truck to leave, all the CO detectors and everything go off. Like there's no separation from the dirty gear, the dirty equipment, and the trucks from offices. So there's a long list of things. I have not yet seen a date as to, you know, must be compliant with all of these things by, but it is industry wide becoming the forefront of the fire service.
Okay, thank you, Chief Hughes. So this would be a question for Michelle. It lists that we should be hiring about 4 additional people in the fire department. Who should we start with first and how many? Like in which order?
Well, I would actually, I'd have to agree with Chief Hughes on this one. Your fire prevention, it is a mandatory requirement for the municipality to have that fire prevention as a very solid level of protection for the community. So I would be starting with at least 2 of those fire prevention officers, and then I would be referring back to Chief Eldred Hughes for further updates if anything has changed on his organization chart. The other part I would like to highlight is there are a significant amount of changes to the training requirements for the firefighters, and a training officer to meet those mandatory training certificates and qualifications. If you're going to continue with all those technical rescues and the services listed in your bylaw currently in state, would be a requirement. So to summarize, Councillor, 2 fire prevention officers and a training officer to start, as well as one last person, as well as an admin assistant to help navigate the day-to-day and the records management and the data collection to help you continue to decide on the strategic vision and movement forward.
Okay, thank you. And so just another question. It mentioned a few times in here about the building code in 1974. And so I think I know what it was. So just what were some of the rules that changed in 1974? What were some of the things that happened to the building code? Like, was there even a building code before 74? Is that when the first building code came in? I guess.
Are you asking me,
Yeah,
Councillor?
well, I was just, anybody.
My short answer is the building code changes about every 3 to 4 years. It's a continuous live document. So to try to nail down what changed from 1974, I think it'd be a little bit of a tough task. Because I can't even tell you what's going to change. We have an upcoming change in the building code here shortly, so I think that's going to be a little bit of a tough task to kind of nail down. Sorry, you're asking me. I'm giving you my honest answer.
It's just because it mentions several times in here the date 1974. I just wonder what was significant about 74.
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the original Ontario Building Code was originally released in 1975. So anything pre-1975 was not to an Ontario code.
Okay, thanks. That was all the questions I had.
Councillor Ward?
Thanks, Mary. So I have a few comments/questions for both. I think my first comment when I read this, it's not the first fire master plan that I've read. There's some other SDG counties that have done some fire master plans. So to me, it kind of blows my mind that they're all different. I really think we missed the mark on not consulting our neighbors, first of all. Second of all, I don't understand how they're all different. We are all similar sized municipalities. We all have similar levels of service. They are not all the same, I will admit that. but I don't understand how they're all significantly different. And I think we've really missed the mark there because, you know, we talk about cost savings and we talk about collaboration, but then when I look at the master plans, none of them contain any collaboration whatsoever. So that's a mark missed, I think, and we should relook at that. I would really appreciate if this came back with some sort of piece about that. My second point too is, you know, in recommendation 10, it talks about consultation. It talks about our community partners. It talks about stakeholders. And when I read the online survey, so I participated in the online survey. I'm not sure if the rest of council had the opportunity, but 31 people responded to it. So very low response. I think we have over 11,000 people in this township. So that's just something we struggle with on a municipal level. It's not just the fire master plan, but 31 people responded. And I can honestly say when I responded to the survey, I didn't know the answer to some of the questions. So I'm not sure that the survey was really indicative of what's going on, because if you're not in the fire service, like I'm not, and I don't have family members that are, and I sit on council, and I didn't know some of the answers to the questions. So I think maybe if we relook at this, maybe we could get some more feedback from the public. And then my other concern is the survey that went out to staff. So there's 66 volunteers based on what I read, and only 12 of them responded to the survey. There's a problem there. I think that there should have been more or a mandatory response from them. I think the consultant, you did say, or I wrote you down what you said there. You said firefighters know your needs best, but only 12 of them responded. So I think there's a few things that need to be readdressed before this, in my opinion, comes back to council to make any decisions, because I think we're missing a lot of information. I can appreciate that there's a lot of recommendations in here, and I think there are some things that we can definitely do. But I think some of the larger asks are far-reaching, and again, I go back to Mr. Nelson. We're going to be having a conversation shortly about asset management, but we again have to talk about levels of service and what we're willing to entertain. And when I read this, I feel like we're moving towards a full-time fire service, and I don't think that our municipality will be able to support that. That's my comment. And then I also just had one question, if I may. Sorry, those are a lot of
No,
comments.
Councilor Ward.
My question goes to the consultant, I guess. You said that we need to fill roles based on mandates. What, I see you have listed mandates in there, but how are other fire departments not having to do that, but we are? Like can you explain? I just don't understand.
Not a problem, Councillor, and your comments are well received and very much appreciated. Thank you for those. The mandates and the requirements fall under the Fire Protection Prevention Act, the FPPA, and every municipality is required to do fire prevention. So that is the inspections, that is the core of it, right? Our first line of defense is fire prevention. The other municipalities are also required to do that by legislation. The question might be rather, how are they doing it, or if they're doing it well? What we are seeing right now is your current practice is that the chief is performing these duties. And when we say the chief is performing these duties, I can speak firsthand to he is performing all the inspections for your community for the vulnerable occupancies. He is reviewing new builds. He is looking at fire suppression systems and alarm systems, doing all those pieces to make sure that your municipality is meeting those mandates. However, your fire chief is only one person, and unfortunately, one person cannot meet the needs of your community to adequately meet those mandates. So right now, we are in a gray area getting things done, and your chief is doing an exceptional job at getting it done. However, it is not sustainable. And I'm sure your chief could speak to the amount of overtime he has had to complete to make sure you're meeting that mandate. So respectfully, Councillor, they are all required to meet the fire prevention pieces in the FPPA. It is how well they are meeting it. And right now I can speak to your community is meeting it well because of the qualifications and the abilities of your fire chief. However, it is not sustainable in current practice, and he will burn out because one person cannot manage that workload.
The mayor?
Yeah, thank you. And this really isn't any questions. It's just a couple comments that I have. And kind of on, a little bit on the line of what Councillor Ward was speaking about. I mean, we're coming in with 11% increased budget as we sit here today. We hire another 4 to 5 employees. That's probably 500 plus thousand annually, which is another 5.6% just on my quick math of what we were reported on the budget. Purchasing a $3.5 million ladder truck, even if we had all 6 municipalities on board to share the cost, is still $500,000 each, which is yet another 5% increase to our budget. I do agree with some of the statements in the plan that I think we do need to ensure we've got, some upgrades to some equipment. I do feel that we do need some upgrades to our facilities to ensure the safety of our firefighters. I think that's paramount. But the reality is, we're a small municipality that simply would not be able to afford this report as it's presented today. And that is the reality. Unless we're going to jack up taxation, or I look to all my fellow staff members and how much are we going to cut out of everybody else's program and level of service to afford the level of service of the firefighting? This is a challenge. And I just, I guess my question really becomes, are we, is this just a delegation at this time with this report? Are we accepting this report? So I guess my question to you, Mayor Braun, and the clerk and the CAO, kind of what is our next steps here on with this report, I guess,
Yeah, no, absolutely. So, yeah, obviously step one is we received information, right? So we hired a contractor to facilitate the RCA, and the next piece is the data, and this are the results of that. Certainly agree with most comments being said, and I continue to advocate at the county council table about collaboration. And I'm the one, and Deputy Mayor and myself, we're the only ones that continue to advocate at the county council to collaborate on these things. And you're right, you watch the North Dundas Fire Master Plan presentation, and you watch ours, and you're like, are we living in two different earths? Like, they're totally different recommendations and outcomes and all that. So appreciate Councillor Ward's comments, because she sat through both, right? She had to listen to both. So right on. So first thing is, yeah, we need to get to that collaboration piece, and which levels on to Deputy Mayor's comments of where's this money coming from? Because I continue to hear about how we get reports, and all we do is we file them because they're all way too expensive, from the road study to the asset management plan to the recreation master plan to the GSUM, roads, bridges, whatever other study we have. There's not enough zeros. There's not enough zeros on your calculator right now. There may be a little bit of rant, but it's yeah, we just have to figure out what we're going to service and what we can pass to taxpayers. And certainly not buying a $3.5 million truck and 2 new firehouses and 7 people, or in the overall, and with the more volunteers. It's tough. It's tough for sure. Yeah. So with that being said, I think we should work together with other municipalities as well to figure out, what are they doing, right? Where's their service going, right? And I commend the fire chief, Eldred. He's been here a year and a half, and last week, 2 weeks ago, we did the fire service awards night, and the people that have been trained, right, and the awards we gave out, and the equipment we bought, SCBA's for all the units. We bought a new fire truck. We've been spending, look at how big the budget is, millions of dollars in that budget. So your points are right on. It's a delegation. Here's what they're saying. But I think we need more information, like, cause just take it and file it or try and act on some of the things, or just can't happen the way they're out there. Yeah, if we need some immediate things, then we'll get them in the budget right away, right? Like, no question that, if we're missing something, we should get them on that, but, Councillor Ward?
Thanks, Mayor. And I just wonder if before it comes back to us for approval or however we're accepting or what we're doing, I just really hope that we can actually give this out, like the full report. Maybe the chief can take it to his station chief meetings and kind of filter it down. I'd love to know what the stations think of this, and if there's some things that we can pick off, like you said, right away, that they can identify that it would be very useful and help improve health and safety, et cetera. That would be valuable to me if that could come back. I think that would also just, maybe bridge that gap between that staff survey where we didn't get a lot of feedback. So I would really like to see that if that's possible before we do anything
Sure.
else.
Councillor Vino?
Thank you. Through you, Mayor. Just have, I guess, a comment or two here. I agree fully with the rest of the councillors here that this is a massive task, massive ask for, if we were to accept this tomorrow, we don't have the funds, obviously, that all of us agree. I look at this, there's a few things in this report that do scare me a little bit from a liability perspective. I think I'd like to see this acted on relatively quickly about some prioritizing some roles here and whatnot, because nuclear verdicts are on a rampant rise. And so if we're missing some legislated pieces here and we miss an inspection on a vulnerable population building and a fire breaks out and some people die or something like that, God forbid, if our paperwork doesn't back up that does scare me from an insurance and a liability side. So while I understand and I totally agree that we could not just take this and write a blank check tomorrow, there are some things in here that I think we need to work on ASAP from a liability side of things. So I just wanted to put that out there. A couple of the things I think need to be addressed quickly.
Very good. No, thank you, Michelle. Appreciate, obviously, for you and your company putting the data together, and we have something to work from, and appreciate you answering all the questions with us tonight. And thanks for the fire chief for participating as well.
Thank you. Have a good night.
You too. Thank you. Okay, moving to 6A, FS 2024-08, 2024 year-end surplus and deficits. Deputy Treasurer Mason or Treasurer Stewart?
Just need a moment for this one.
Sorry about that, Mr. Mayor. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem.
The report before you tonight for the Reserve and Reserve Fund transfer is, that's a report that we provide every year by the request of the auditors. Basically, it's runs in concert from the Reserve and Reserve Fund policy, and the auditor likes to see that we've at least notified council of our intention to make those transfers of any surplus and/or deficits. There are no numbers on the attachment because, as you can well imagine, our year-end process is just beginning now. So I'll take any questions you might have.
Okay, so I have a motion that the Council of the Municipality of South Dundas accept report FS 2024-08 to authorize all future surplus and/or deficits as of December 31st, 2024, be transferred as described in the attached schedule. Moved by Councillor Vino, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. Thank you very much. Action request 6B, FS 2024-09, 2024 excluded expense report. Treasurer Stewart.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. As with most municipalities, the municipality of South Dundas prepares its annual budget on a cash basis. So because of that reporting, the province requires the municipality to prepare an excluded expense report annually to identify the impact of these expenses. And the province also requires that council adopt the report by resolution. So the attached report is a reconciliation. And basically, what it does, it reconciles the budget to the financial activity report on the financial statement. So the budget has certain amounts. It has the tangible capital assets, the principal on loans and transfers to reserves, whereas the financial activity report does not. And on the other side of it, the financial activity report has the amortization, which the budget doesn't have. So it requires us to, I guess, bridge those two items with this reconciliation is basically what it's all about.
And is this audited during our audit, MNP? Would they audit?
They don't audit this. In the past, they have prepared it for us, but
see.
it was prepared in-house this year.
Okay. Very good. Questions or comments? So I have a motion that council municipality accept report FS 2024-09 to approve the 2024 excluded expense report as required by Ontario Regulation 28409 as per the attached. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. And starting with the Treasury, FS 2024-10, additional write-off.
So thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So throughout each year, MPAC approves requests for reduction in assessments. So they become write-offs to us, write-off of property taxes. They can result from, lowering assessments, or perhaps a fire, or a building, a structure was demolished. So various reasons, or change in class of tax class, various reasons to result in a write-off of taxes. The number of requests and the amounts can vary year after year. We generally don't know what's coming year after year, so it makes it a little bit tough to budget. In 2023, we did budget 60,000 and it was 36. So in 2024, our budget was 35,000. We're currently at 31,000, and we know there's approximately another 5,000 to come for the rest of the year. So it's going to cause us to be slightly over budget. So right now, we're asking council to approve the request to transfer the required funds to cover this deficit up to a maximum of $5,000.
Questions, comments? Seeing none, I have a motion that council accept the FS 2024-10, approves the request up to additional $5,000 for write-offs of expense for the municipal portion of tax write-offs to be withdrawn from the tax write-off contingency reserve. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 6E, ES 2024-16, parcel drain abandonment, Baldwin Harbors, Infrastructure Services Coordinator, Chris St. Thomas. How about D, 6D, CS 2024-14, leasing space at 34 Otto Street, Clerk LeBrun.
Thank you, Mayor Broad. The report before you this evening, Council, is a report requesting or seeking authorization to enter into a lease negotiations for the first floor office space here at the Municipal Centre. We're looking to share this, well, we're not going to be in the space, but there are three community organizations who are looking to utilize this space. MP Eric Duncan's office, the South Dundas Chamber of Commerce, and the Early On Group Child and Family Center. So this, as you know, the space became available earlier this year when we moved our reception back to the second floor where its original place was before COVID. And it's been great, a great move for staff and the public. They certainly have more access to us. And it's been a great move for cross-training and development for our staff. But with this unused space, we've been approached by these three organizations. We have a schedule laid out in the report for you that they would occupy the space. Director Jansen has already begun the preparations of this to prepare the space for the shared use, including electrical lighting updates, privacy blind installations, rekeying the door, things like that. So we're just looking for council's approval to enter or to start negotiating the terms of a lease with these three community organizations.
Yeah, no, thank you for the report, Clerk Run. MP Duncan has been using a small office space on the third floor, so that moves them back down, just easier for access on the first floor with the Thursday afternoons. And I think, yeah, having the chambers, I know I talked to President Randy North, kind of, we chatted a little bit back and forth, opportunity as their financial structure is changing with their rental space. So an opportunity for the chambers to have a space and then be part of the community, right? And then for the early years as part of the whole third floor. So I think that's good. Any questions or comments at this time? I think it's a great use of the space and good for our residents to have that here. So I do have then a motion that council accept report CS 2024-14 authorizing the clerk and director of facilities to negotiate and execute lease agreements for the first floor office space at 34 Ottawa Street, Morrisburg, with the office of MP Eric Duncan, South Dundas Chamber of Commerce, and the Early On Child and Family Care to support the municipality and third-party operations. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Deputy Mayor. Thank you. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, Clerk O'Brien. Okay, now to the exciting topic of ES 2024-16, the Parcel Drain Abandonment, Baldwin Harbors Infrastructure Services Coordinator, Chris St. Thomas.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. Good evening, everybody. So under the Drainage Act, landowners have a right to request a partial or full abandonment of municipal drains. We received a request from a landowner to do such. Through the Drainage Act, we are required to notify surrounding landowners, all landowners in the watershed, actually. That was done. The clerk or myself have not received any feedback from any landowners in the time frame that was allotted. However, the landowner that requested the abandonment had gone ahead and filled it in prior to council's decision on this matter. And we have also since received a letter from a concerned neighbor. So right now we're looking for council to decide if this abandonment should go through or should not go through.
Comments, questions? Councillor Ward?
Thank you, Mayor, and this is a question for Chris. So the landowner that is concerned about drainage, how are they going to achieve drainage now that we've abandoned? So normally, sometimes through an abandonment, it just stays an open channel and it just no longer is a municipal drain, correct?
Yeah.
And then they can work on it how they choose. But since this has been filled in, how will this landowner now get drainage? Is that on their responsibility to figure that out?
Yeah, so the proper process under the Drainage Act was followed. The landowner that had applied or had requested and had done the work of filling it in, although premature in filling it in, he met all criteria to do so. So it would be up to that neighboring landowner to figure it out on his own. If council decides to allow the abandonment, then the Conservation Authority has been contacted and the landowner will have to possibly pay a fine for altering a water course without permits. If council approves the, if the council does not approve the abandonment, then the Conservation Authority will be consulted for the reinstatement of the drain.
As our coordinator, would you recommend reabandonment?
In my report, it says recommend, and the only reason I put that there was because, other than it being prematurely filled in, we did what we had to do, Clerk LeBrun and I, we did consult legal on this. So we're not doing anything wrong if we decide to approve it. We are kind of putting one landowner out, if you will, but it's within the rights of the Drainage Act to do so.
Very good. Councillor Smith?
Yeah, I, with the, so I know that all the landowner that filled in the drain, with all of the land in that area, like it's all being tile drained. Now, there's gotta be a way that the two parties could work together to figure out some surface drainage through the existing tile drainage system. A lot of these drains would have been dug back in the 70s or something like that,
Yeah,
before
sorry, this
before
one was
tile drainage
1975.
was a big popular thing, and so to drain surface water. But now with like the subsurface drainage, I think that there's a way that everybody could get along and mutually figure something out here. So that's my opinion.
So you're for the abandonment? Yes. Okay. Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Broad. I think, first of all, I'm okay with moving forward with this decision, but I think what we need to do is, I think we need to do some public awareness again, because this is kind of a second incident that has occurred with owners doing something that they're really not supposed to do. And I'm not saying they're doing it on purpose or anything, but there needs to be some awareness here of what the rights are and what they can and can't do. So I'm hoping that maybe with a little effort, you can pull something together just as a reminder for anybody that drains to a municipal drain. You know, this is what they can and can't do. And hopefully we can continue reiterating that nothing gets completed until there's a final word from the municipality that, you know, everything has been passed and council has passed it. So I think just education on this one, because I really don't want a third incident coming, because it may be a no if there's a third incident, because we should know better. But anyways, on this one, I'm okay with it.
Councillor Ward?
Thanks, Mayor.
You reached for your mic, so
I
I
did.
assume.
Through you, Mayor, to Mr. St. Thomas, the Chess Municipal Drain comes up the south side of that property. That's in question for the drainage, correct?
I don't have my map on me.
I think it just shows in the picture. I'm just assuming it's.
Oh, it's on the, I think everything on the chest is on the opposite side of the road. So it's
Oh,
not,
so it doesn't cross the.
No.
Okay.
No, this water in this drain goes northeast, if you will.
Okay.
Okay. So I have a motion. The Council of South Dundas approve the partial abandonment of the drainage works on Baldwin Harbor's municipal drain. Moved by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Opposed? All in favor? Okay, carried. Continuing with Mr. St. Thomas, ES 2024-17, partial drain abandonment, Marcellus, Drain Branch 3.
Okay, thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So we have another partial drain abandonment from a different landowner. Same idea, this is a small drain between two fields, no longer used. We've actually just finished maintaining the Marcellus Drain Branch 3 this afternoon, excluding that portion, because it was not needed. So the two landowners involved are requesting the abandonment of it.
Questions? Comments? I have a motion that Council of South Dundas approve the partial abandonment of drainage works on Marcellus Drain Branch number 3. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. G, ES 2024-18, Don Hayes partial drain abandonment. Mr. St. Thomas.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So this abandonment is, the request came in from the same landowner as the first one that we spoke about. Same idea, small drain bisects his field. There have been no issues raised with any neighboring landowners on this one, so we're asking for abandonment.
So the third time didn't happen yet. Any questions, comments? Deputy Mayor?
Yeah, I just had a quick question, and it's confirmation. I mean, it's fairly clear on the pictures, but on the one sketch, it's kind of marked up with a highlighter, and then there's a couple dashed lines that says to be filled, to be filled. So I was just, when I was looking at that, I want to, okay, what are we actually filling here?
Sorry, which map are you looking?
That's the handwritten map. It looks like a 19, it's on 426 of the agenda. On mine, it says 426, but no.
Okay, so through you, Mr. Mayor, that is the original from 1975 when the drain was designed.
Yeah.
The highlighted portion is the portion that they're requesting the abandonment currently. In 1975, that dashed line was moved.
Was the
along
ones to
property
be
line.
filled. Thank you. Thank you. I was just,
Yeah, that's good.
hey, good,
Yeah, good question. Okay,
perfect.
Councilor Ward?
Thank you, Mayor. So just on this, the Don Haynes, the landowner that's pond is fed from the drain had no concern.
Sorry, through you, Mr. Mayor. No, on this one, the letter was sent out to all the properties that are on the branch 14, which is this is part of. And I think we give them 10 days. I gave them 30 days actually to respond, and we've received no correspondence.
Very good. Okay, thank you, Mr. St. Thomas. I have a motion that Council of South Dundas approve the partial abandonment of the drainage works on Don Haynes Drain. Moved by Councilor Ward, seconded by Councilor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Yes.
So just a comment moving forward on these drain abandonments, just as the deputy mayor was mentioned before about public information on this, and we're going to continue to see more and more of these as the farmers are always looking to make fields bigger, make longer runs without having to turn. So we're going to see more and more and more of these for several years to come. So just as you mentioned, we need to, maybe it's through the Dundas Federation of Agriculture or something like that, or the Christian Farmers Federation, to get the information out there of exactly the process to go through for moving municipal drains, abandoning them, the whole process, start to finish, exactly how this works, because we don't want anybody to make a very expensive mistake and get themselves into some legal issues.
Yeah,
So,
correct. Fair point.
yeah, and exactly, you know, the first step is everybody should figure out for sure exactly where, if there's a ditch on their property, is it a municipal drain or is it just a private ditch? That's, everybody should have that figured out. Like, that's just to eliminate a lot of problems.
Councilor Ward?
I think to that too, I don't know if, maybe we can make a notice of motion later to instruct staff, but I think it would be worthwhile to also not only update farmers, but residents, because I would bet there's a lot of residents that we just looked at that probably received a notice that have no idea what it even pertains to and how it impacts their property potentially, right? So all these abandonments are being done without a report of an engineer, correct, Mr. St. Thomas?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Mayor, yes, that's right. So under the Drainage Act, an abandonment is allowed
Yeah,
without the report of an engineer.
correct. So that could mean, and that's why I ask these questions, if I am a landowner and I suddenly lose my drainage access because someone has filled in a municipal drain, my property could flood because no engineer's report has been consulted. And I just don't think a lot of residents understand that they can ask for that to make sure their property is protected through the process. So I'll make a motion later on
Yeah,
at the
so
council
sounds
meeting,
good.
but that'll be the information behind it.
I'll let Chris.
Sorry,
Yeah,
a little
go ahead.
bit further to that, Councillor Ward, in the letter, the requirement that we have is to notify the residents involved that they have the option to request an engineer. And when they do not respond, then we assume that they, that they don't want that done.
Thank you. H, ES 2024-19 Saddlemeyer Municipal Drain Assessment Schedule Update.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Mayor. So the Saddlemeyer Drain is a relatively large drain. I've been seeing requests for the last 2 years since I've been here for maintenance. The assessment schedule is notoriously out of date, as are many of ours, the older drains. So we're looking to update the assessment schedule. That would be called a Section 76 under the Drainage Act. We've done a few of these in the past. Pretty simple process. So we're asking that we appoint the engineer to start this process.
Questions, comments? A motion, let it resolve the Council Municipality of South Dundas hereby appoints Monica Shade, Engineer, Vice President, Engineering of Sales of Shade Group, as engineer to prepare a new assessment schedule for the Saddlemeyer Municipal Drain pursuant to Section 76 of the Drainage Act 1990, Chapter D17, as amended. Moved by Councilor Ward, seconded by Councilor Vino. All in favor? Carried. Okay, bylaws, 7A, 2024-83, water and wastewater 25 rates. Treasurer Stewart?
Thank you. Through you, Mr. Mayor. Staff and council met on Friday, December 6th to discuss the 2025 water and wastewater budget. A 4% increase was proposed to Morrisburg and Iroquois water rates and was approved by resolution on the day of the meeting. So this bylaw is to set the new rates to start January 1st, 2025. And I guess further to that, staff will bring forward a bylaw in 2025, I guess early in the new year, for the Williamsburg wastewater rates for council to consider.
Thank you, Treasurer Stewart. Questions, comments? Seeing none, I have a motion. Sorry, Deputy Mayor.
Yeah, sorry, through you, Mayor Brown. I was just curious, why didn't the Williamsburg one come as part of this as well?
Well, I guess because we decided on Friday, and I had the bylaw for the water prepared, but nothing for the wastewater.
Okay.
And the agenda, I believe was.
It was created on the
Okay, so it was just a
It was in the-
logistic thing, okay.
That was all,
Perfect, it
yes.
was just logistic.
So it'll
Okay,
be on the
perfect,
next
thank you.
one.
We created the agenda on Thursday.
Yeah, no,
Friday, yeah. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. So a motion to resolve 2024-83 being a bylaw to amend Schedule B to the bylaw 2017-58 to enact rules and regulations to inspect, install, repair, replace, or alter water meters and related apparatus, including penalties for offenses, be read, passed, and open council, signed and sealed. Councilor Ward, that was easy for me to say. Deputy Mayor St. Pierre, seconded. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. 7B, 2024-84 Waste Collection Services Bylaw. Manager Hyman.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. So in front of you, you'll find the new and improved, updated version of the landfill bylaw. So what we did here in working closely with Clerk LeBrun is we corrected the old bylaw to reflect the changes which we have made to how we operate the landfill as of today. So we dealt with like residential construction debris and gave the proper terminology to it. We've modified the elimination of IC&I at the landfill, so we've removed that from the bylaw. We cleaned it up to make it represent today's standards. You will note in bullet item number 6 that next steps will be to include and update the tipping fees, which we will bring back in January to reflect the new costs for residential construction debris and what that will look like if they bring in a half ton or if they bring in a trailer or that type of activity. So I can answer any questions which you may have at this time, but this is strictly a new working document. And if council sees the need to make changes, then we'll correct them tonight and we'll bring it back as a formal document.
Well, thanks, Manager Hyman. And I assume we'll have more updates as we go through the whole process of what we're doing. Just a comment, overall, I do hear lots of talk about the blue box collection and businesses, the malls are getting organized to do that. So that's a good sign. The communications between our communications officer and the counties obviously has the word out. So just for a reminder, January 1st, blue box collection changes in the South Dundas for commercial industrial pickups. For residents, it stays the same. So just a reminder on that. Any comments on the bylaw? Okay, seeing, I have a motion, let it resolve that the Council of Dundas rescind bylaw 2022-115 and adopt bylaw 2024-84, being a bylaw to provide and regulate a waste management system for the municipality of South Dundas, be read first, second, third time, passed, signed, and sealed in open council this 11th day of December 2024, moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carry. Seven C, 2024-85, compressed week policy. Clerk LeBrun.
Thank you, Mayor Broad. The report before you tonight, Council, is a report on our compressed work week pilot that we launched in July of this year for full-time staff across finance, corporate services, fire, planning, building services, departments. And this came in June as well for approval. So in September, the pilot was extended by council to run to December 31st. The extended municipal hours from Monday to Thursday till 5 o'clock has enhanced our customer service and the ability to serve the public later during the week. It also serves as a recruitment and retention tool with no added cost to the municipality. You'll see the data that we've been tracking since July shows a significant decrease in volume for visitors and calls for Fridays. We have not received any public complaints as of right now with our new operating hours. The policy and the bylaw in front of you does authorize the CAO to amend these the 5-day schedule if there's training or budget meetings, tax deadlines. We are able to extend that to Friday afternoons when needed. But the policy is before you to consider, and we're recommending and moving forward with this. I'm happy to answer any questions council may have.
Questions, comments at this time? Councillor Smith.
Yeah, the same comment as last time, should be working Friday afternoon.
Thank you, Councillor. I have a motion, let it resolve that bylaw number 2024-85 being a bylaw to adopt the compressed work week administrative office policy 215 be read, passed, and open council, signed and sealed, and that the policy shall come into force and take effect upon passing of this bylaw. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Motion is carried. 7D, 2024-87, disposal of goods and assets policy 33. Clerk LeBrun.
Thank you, Mayor Broad. Once again, this is, the policy has come back to be adopted by bylaw. We discussed this about a month ago. We brought forward a policy from a notice of motion that would formalize the disposal process for municipal assets and equipment. So the purpose of the policy is to ensure transparency and accountability with asset disposal. And it aims to maximize resource conservation and support sustainability. So the policies before you today, we did keep the limits in line with our current procurement policy. And when we do bring that procurement policy back for an update, likely in 2025, we can look at updating those limits at that time. But if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions, comments? Thanks, Clerk LeBrun. I have a bylaw, let it resolve that bylaw 2024-87 being a bylaw to adopt policy 333, disposal of goods and assets policy be read and passed in open council, signed and sealed. This bylaw shall come into force and take effect immediately upon passing. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Smith. All in favor? Carried. Seven E, 2486 Animal Control Agreement Extension to January 31st, CAO Mills.
Thank you very much through you, Mr. Mayor. As council is aware, 4 municipalities that are listed there, including us as the lead municipality, have an animal control officer in an agreement with Mr. Castleman for services and operations of animal control in the kennel. At this time, we have information from other municipalities. They're looking at other options. In fact, a few have already decided on other options. While that process is ongoing, we're recommending and asking for an extension of the current agreement just for the month of January, at which time, between now and the next meeting actually is the third week of January, I'll have an update for council about how we proceed and move forward with animal control and the kennel.
Very good. So I have questions for CEO Mills. Seeing none, I have motion that council authorize CEO to execute the extension of the animal control officer agreement until January 31st, 2025. Moved by Councillor Smith, seconded by Councillor Ward. All in favor? Carried. Thank you, CEO Mills. Boards and committees. Start off with Councillor Smith, South Nation, November 21st. Did you already do that one? Okay. Was there an updated, the next meeting's tomorrow. Okay, so you'll have an update at the next meeting. Okay, very good. C, SCG Library Board meeting. So our last library board meeting was held here in Morrisburg, and we had our year-end review, and everybody knows how much I love the library board. And had an excellent year-end with the library board, and we shared a lot of statistics and how well and how the library continues to increase visitation. Obviously, I had a big event this year. Again, was our SD Reads Day with Craig Shreve with his American Samurai book, and then all the other activities with our volunteers and friends of the library. One of the things at in our November meeting, we adopted all the meeting topics for 2025, which is quite extensive. Being on a library board has a lot of rules and regulations, and between having a marketing plan and a policy review, engagement surveys, policy reviews, library committee, provincial library rules and regulations, budgeting, evaluating our staff, all falls on the board's hands. So we reviewed all those activities for 2025 and set our meeting schedule for 2025. And most importantly, compliments on the Morrisburg facility is one of the best in the county. So it's obviously one of the newer with the reconstruction of the building not too long ago. All of the board members really, they walked around and was impressed with the lighting we have and just the space overall, which is really nice to hear on that point. And our next meeting is in January. On 8D, Economic and Community Development meeting. Deputy Mayor and I attended a meeting November 26th. We spent quite a bit of time, reviewing all the tracking tools, all the little mini projects we're working on. Cycling continues to be a big one, which we talk about. We talk about the parks, we talk about the walks, and then all the other development and how we can help on that side. And then on the tourism side, continue to work through some ideas. And we reviewed the strat plan. We also had a good recap of our awards gala, because that was our first meeting after the gala. So had some great feedback in that meeting to improve next year's, and looking forward to that. Some of the items to bring forward, and I think a couple of them were some more staffing, which was in our budgets. We also talked briefly about lifeguards. That was one of the things from our meeting that we brought forward. We continue to talk doctor recruitment and daycare in those meetings. We continue to have delegations from those groups on that. So I think that were the highlights. Deputy Mayor? Yep, good. I also had a Rideau St. Lawrence board meeting last week, and we continue to be partners with Westport and Cardinal and Prescott and in the utility. Another good year overall. The AGMs are in August, but we did work on our 2025 business plan. We have engaged. We're going to have facilitate or help us through a longer-term plan with the utility to increase and maintain, certainly maintain, but increase the profits of the organization and continue to work on that. We finalized our audit plans for 2024. We worked on the updated shareholders agreement, so CAO Mills and I attended a meeting in between. We have an updated shareholders agreement, which will come to us in the new year. Simon Wu, the president, will come with an updated shareholders agreement, mostly around wording of the documents created 25 years ago. A couple of topics that we'll get into good discussion at the time when Mr. Wu presents the shareholder agreement. And that was our Rideau St. Lawrence board meeting. And lastly, SDG County budget meeting was on last Tuesday. Deputy Mayor and I spent the day working on county budget. Obviously a significant budget overall, which is, mostly in the roads department. And we passed a levy increase of 4.89%, which has been reported. And most of that, over 3% of that came from the OPP and the long-term care home increase. So we're looking at basically it was 1.8 for all the other regular business within the county. So thought it was a good job by staff coming up with a good budget and using reserves and using that comment because it did come up. We work on a 4-year cycle of paving and working on roads. So South Dundas is in 2026. So you'll see our county roads that are being worked on will be coming in 2026. So next budget year we'll have more information which roads they are, what we're doing with them, when it'll happen. So it's a good process they have. They work in areas to keep the cost down, moving those around. Anything else?
No, the only thing I would say is, it was a good, somewhat of a relief to get the provincial funding to support the OPP cost, 1.1 million, something like that for 2025, and then they helped with the 2023 billing. And, it just struck me as I was reading through the consent agenda items on a couple of the items in which they were governments are asking for help in terms of provincial funding. I think that just shows that if we are all united, we keep the pressure, we keep the same topic, we keep the same approach to the provincial governments, hopefully more funding will come our way, and they'll recognize that lower tier municipalities and the counties need any support that we can get. So, more than one voice is good. So I just want to make that comment.
Very good. Thank you for that. And then Councillor Ward, did you have a youth working group update?
So I wasn't able to attend the meeting. However, just an update, they did set, the Youth Wellness Fair is going to be January 29th.
Jan 29?
Yeah.
Okay.
They are also, Melissa's doing a fabulous job at trying to recruit for 2025. So if anyone listening or anybody in the room knows any youth that would like to join the committee. Oh, sorry.
No, as a kid, could you jog my memory on what age group you're typically looking for, or isn't in the terms?
It's in the terms of reference. I believe it's up to the age of 25. 12 to 25.
12 to 25, okay.
14, yeah.
12 to 25, good. Yeah, there's lots of youth that fall into that age group, so when we're out, I have children that age that fall in that category, so. Very good, thank you, Councillor Ward. Okay, consent agenda, under 9A, information administrative stats. B, resolution Township of Plushlinch, Ontario Provincial Police Costs. C, KRA Christmas closure hours. D, KRA recurring service 2025 rates. E, KRA Farlinger sewer main replacement. F, committee appointment, Iroquois Waterfront Subcommittee. G, committee appointment, Iroquois Waterfront Subcommittee. H, Economic and Community Development Committee member appointment.
I guess we didn't look at the agenda very well. No. It's double counted on the G.
Not only is it double counted, but I was just going to mention it says Morseburg in the header.
Okay.
So we'll fix that.
After the errors are corrected, we'll have a motion that all the items listed on the consent agenda be, of the agenda be adopted as presented. Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino, all in favor? Carried. 10A, discussion item, proposed level of service. Mr. Nelson, welcome. Oh, Treasurer Stewart, do you want to kick off the introduction?
If you don't mind, if I
Sure,
could,
yes, of
Mr.
course.
Mayor. So first, I wanted to say thank you to Tyler Nelson, our Asset Management Coordinator, for preparing this report, and the directors involved in their input and their recommendations. This report is intended to start the conversation on a 10-year plan of the levels of service for the municipal assets. Presented this evening will be recommendations based on asset classes and the financial effect to those recommendations. Staff is asking council to review and evaluate the levels of service options that are proposed, as well as, communicate any that you see that should be considered. And staff would like to return early in the new year with further discussions based on recommendations.
Very good, thank you, Treasurer Stewart. Mr. Nelson.
Thank you, Julie. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I'll get started then with a timeline. So in 2019, we completed our asset management policy. And in 2022, we completed the first asset management plan for core assets. 2024, we completed the asset management plan for all assets. And then we reviewed in that same year, and this year, we've reviewed and updated the asset management policies. So the next step is to propose levels of service and create a 10-year plan. So based on Ontario Regulation 588-17 requirements, we are required to review levels of service, which we're doing in this meeting and a future meeting, and to propose levels of service for the next 10 years. Based on our asset management policy, it's council's responsibility to, they have the final say, to propose levels of service. Then we need to determine capital requirements based on our proposed levels of service, and then select projects to undertake based on current funding, and then create a 10-year plan. So just to quickly review, levels of service are divided by into a couple categories, scope and quality, and then once again into community and technical levels of service. So community tend to be description and maps, technical are performance measures, metrics, so we can get a number associated. And then scope, number of assets available or number of users typically. And then quality is more condition ratings. We'll focus today on scope in this meeting and then dive deeper into quality in the next meeting. So this slide, I've showed you all this slide before. It just shows a relationship between annual requirement and level of service. So if we decrease our level of service, then our annual requirement decreases. And then vice versa, if we increase our level of service, then our annual requirement increases. I've added this chart here to show currently we're not meeting our funding requirements for asset management purposes. Therefore, we have a significant funding shortfall, but this is not abnormal. A lot of other municipalities are going through this right now, and it was outlined in the asset management plan as well. Our goal is to find a balance in the second line between increasing funding and reducing levels of service or decreasing annual requirement. We can do this by proposing new levels of service. This will help to eliminate funding shortfall. It'll be a lot more manageable. So a few methods to reduce annual requirement. Three we look at in this meeting today would be to not replace some assets at the end of their service life, to find cheaper replacement options or life cycle options, and then to delay replacement if possible. So with the help of directors, we've compiled a list of level of service options and recommendations from directors for you to review. I have included asset categories with updated current replacement costs and annual requirements. So a few notes before we get started. Road surface replacement costs have increased since the last asset management plan. They originally had a 1-inch asphalt surface, but for the initial surface, we have 2 inches of asphalt now, so it should be more accurate. Fire assets are not covered in this presentation. We can consider recommendations from the fire master plan for the next time we meet. And then finally, fleet will also not be covered since it's reviewed annually at a minimum, so there are no new recommendations. So to get started, I'll start with roads. So our new plan for roads, our new level of service, is to resurface surface treated roads with a 1-inch layer of asphalt. So currently, for double surface treated roads, we have approximately 121 kilometers of roads, and double surface treated roads. And after 7 and 14 years, these roads require events based on the condition of the road. So that could be a single surface, double surface, a micro surface. Therefore, based on our estimates in this cost breakdown, for a 1 kilometer road, for example, we could see $240,000 in replacement costs over 20 years. Could be an annual requirement of $12,000, and then a recommended recommended levels of service require 1 inch of asphalt after every 15 years, and that would happen twice before the process starts over again. So the new life cycle events are expected to look something like this. A road would be pulverized and a 2-inch layer of asphalt would be installed, and then after 15 years, 1-inch layer of asphalt would be added, and then after another 15 years, another inch layer of asphalt would be added. So it's expected to increase the overall useful life to 45 years. So going back to example of 1 kilometer road estimate, $400,000 in life cycle costs over 45 years, expected to be $9,000 annual requirement. So if we project this over all of the roads instead of a 1 kilometer road, we're expected to see a $380,000 decrease to annual requirement. And then the same can be done for asphalt roads. So instead of microsurfacing or whatever other event we would be outlined in the road needs study, we can lay down 1 inch of asphalt twice. And of course, the events can be changed based on the condition outlined in the road needs study. So we've calculated 280,000 decrease to annual requirement for 208 kilometers of roads, of asphalt roads. Moving on to gravel roads, more specifically winter maintained gravel roads. Gravel resurfacing is done every 3 years. An option would be to move that to every 4 years. It would save us approximately $21,000 to annual requirement every year. However, staff is recommending to maintain 3 years. Condition is good, it works as is, but it's an option to consider. A couple easier ones, we're recommending that useful life for streetlight arms and poles are extended from 30 years to 40 years before replacement, and then for guide rail as well, to extend from 25 years to 50 years for replacement. Moving on to sidewalks, non-winter maintained sidewalks. Our options are to either maintain, replace all existing sidewalks, which would be to maintain levels of service. And option 2 would be to only replace sidewalks on one side of the road for any road that has sidewalks on both sides. Option 2 would likely reduce our annual requirement by about 20,000. So to dive a little deeper, I've included a couple maps here of a couple areas in Iroquois and Mooresburg where there are sidewalks on both sides of the road. So with this plan, staff would recommend that we only replace one side, preferably the side with streetlights unless it makes more sense to keep the other. It's a similar annual requirement change regardless of side. I do want to mention before moving on that all these sidewalks that wouldn't be replaced are non-winter maintained. Now moving on to Calhoun Road Bridge. I won't get too far into this one because we have some information from earlier that we can digest, but a hydraulic study was recommended to be completed in the last OSIM report to determine feasibility of replacing this bridge with a box culvert. Well, study's been completed, so we'll have to review these options. So we'll come back to this, but for now I've left annual requirement changes out for Calhoun Road Bridge. But yeah, we'll leave that one for now. Moving on to South Branch Road Bridge. Staff's recommending to not replace South Branch Road Bridge. Its estimated remaining service life is about 7 years. This section of road is gravel, I believe non-winter maintained gravel. And from one end of the bridge to the other to go around is approximately 3.6 kilometers using Carmen Road and Gilmore Road. It's about a 5-minute drive. The road needs study has traffic volume between 50 and 199. And then from one section of the road to the other, it's quicker to travel around than it is to go through the road. So staff's recommending removing this bridge at the end of its service life. On to facilities. So public works and recreation garages, built in the early 70s, staff's recommending that we have one centralized operations lot for all public works and parks rec facilities vehicles. There's likely a minimal change in replacement costs, but staff believes that this would be beneficial in many ways. So I'm sure you'll hear more about this in the future, but I did want to add it. On to recreation facilities. We have approximately 25,000 square feet in rec halls across 5 buildings in South Dundas. Also, we have additional space on the 3rd floor of the municipal office, although it's, I believe, usually pretty busy. So the question is, can we reduce the number of rec halls from 5 to 3? A couple comments before moving on. Matilda Hall and Brinston EDP building are about a 2-minute drive from each other. There's minimal programming overlap between Matilda Hall and Iroquois Civic Center. And Matilda Hall and the Iroquois Civic Center are less than 10-minute drive from each other, so not too far. So our option 1 of 2, and this one's recommended by staff, to replace the 5 rec halls with only 3. So we'd replace the west 3 rec halls, so the Iroquois Civic Center, Matilda Hall, Brinston EDP building with only 2 facilities. Replacement would be expected to decrease by about 2.7 million. Annual requirement would drop by 78,000 per year. The other part of this option would be to replace the 2 east rec halls, Riverside and Dunbar, with 1 facility. This would see a $1.1 million decrease to replacement cost, and then a $21,000 per year decrease to annual requirement. So combined, this would save us approximately $100,000 off of annual requirement. The other option would be to reduce the replacement size of Matilda Hall and Riverside Hall. So Matilda Hall, we could replace with a smaller facility, about 75% of its current size. This would reduce replacement by about $700,000. And then the other part of this option would be to replace Riverside Hall with a smaller facility to match the size of Dunbar Hall, which is 1 floor. This would be expected to save us approximately 470 in replacement. Combined, this would save us approximately $23,000 per year. A few other facilities to go over. So we're not planning replacement for the BIA office space, the Mooresburg Clock Tower, or the Forward House, since it's an historic building. And I do want to mention too, with parking lots, that level of service will match the facilities. So if we decide to reduce the size of a building when replacing, that the same will happen to the parking lot. So final department, water and sewer equipment. A few upgrades are recommended. Staff's recommending that we increase water capacity from 9,500 cubes to 18,000 cubes. This would require a xenon filter upgrade, so it would be a $960,000 increase, and then a $96,000 per year increase. However, there's no required change to the facility, the water plant facility. It would just be to the xenon filter. And then also, we plan to reduce the UV system useful life from 30 to 20 based on new information. Now, I do want to touch on relining versus replacing before we end. So both relining and replacing use similar material costs, and the useful life is expected to be similar, but there's no guarantee yet with relining since the whole process is too new. Replacing, however, requires digging up the road surface and base, so I do want to mention it's important that we coordinate road replacement with storm, water, and sewer, just something to consider before major infrastructure construction. So now we can come back to replacement cost and annual requirement overall. With all of these changes, we would be able to reduce annual requirement by about 800,000 or by 6%. So I'm asking council to review and consider some of these level of service options, and let us know if you have any recommendations of asset categories we should look into, or if you have any questions about any of this, I can do my best to answer.
Well, thank you for the report, Mr. Nelson. Really interesting, and I think point of context is going back to one of your earlier slides, right, is where we're funding today and what the overall requirement is, right? So anywhere where level of service can change, we can change those two blue lines, right? And those are decisions that are ahead of us that are multi-year decisions, obviously, going forward. Certainly read the report, hearing you speak tonight. Looking forward to any questions or comments. It's for discussion at this point, right? There's no decision level to be made tonight other than, next steps, where we want to go, how we want to deal with the report. Comments? Councilor Smith?
Yeah, so it's definitely been a good news evening at the council table tonight about all the millions of dollars that we need to spend on everything. And so the thing about the double service treated roads to the asphalt, why we're paving them now. So if anybody had the questions, I've been asked a few times why we're paving roads, and well, this is why, because in, like it says, 45 years from now, it's going to be cheaper. That's why. It's just 9,000 per kilometer instead of 12,000 per kilometer. That's why we're doing it, because I've been asked that a few times. Everybody says it's a waste. Well, it's not a waste. That's why we have data here to show that it's not. So a question for Manager Hyman. The gravel roads every 3 years getting gravel, they're not split up into three, like a third every year. It's like just every 3 years we do them all.
So through you, Mayor Broad. So presently we have a 3-year program. So every third year, the full network of that road will get 3 inches of gravel applied to it. It works out to around 8 to 9 kilometers a year. And we have the roads in the east end, your whippoorwills and your Crowders, they're all part of 1 year to make it efficient, right? Okay. For the delivering company bringing the gravel. Then we come over to the west end side, Branch, South Branch, Levere, Irving, they would then see it. So yeah, we're on a 3-year cycle right now, and our gravel roads are holding up tremendous. We're seeing, we see potholes, but we get the grader out and we address the potholes, and they seem to be holding. We're not getting the soft spots in the spring of the year with the thaw. So I don't know if it's because there's a good base there or what the issue is, but we're definitely, we're seeing good results with the every 3. We could go every 4, and I would just have to rejig my program to make it go that 4th year is all.
Okay, that's all. Councilor Ward?
Thanks, Mayor. Do we want to give are we giving feedback on the options tonight? I would like to, if
Sure,
we're-
yeah, no,
if that's all right.
Yeah, no, of course.
Do you want me just to go through mine?
Yeah, go through what you're thinking. Be great.
So first of all, I think that, Director Hyman, the surface treated roads and the asphalt roads are a no-brainer for me. I think that we continue on that program, and Mr. Nelson, I'm fine with that. I think the cost savings is significant, so obviously. For gravel roads, I know it's proposed that we could push it to every 4 years, but I know other municipalities have pushed out that, and they're suffering greatly now. So I think we just maintain that every 3 years. I think we have great gravel roads. I drive quite a few of them every day, and I think they're in great shape. So but again, up for discussion. Streetlights didn't have any concerns there. I think that's fine. The sidewalks, I think that my personal preference would be option 2. I think it's lovely that we have sidewalks on both sides, but it's also very costly, and I think that I'm sure one side of the road is sufficient to travel around. I know we don't want to talk about Calhoun Road Bridge, but I think you already heard what I had to say, Mr. Nelson, about that, so I'll leave that there. South Branch Road Bridge makes me happy because I also agree with that. I don't think we should have to replace that for, that's a lot of money for that. Anyways, Public Works and Recreation Garages, I agree. I think one location in the future, this is not building, so just so everyone's aware, and maybe people listening at home, we're not replacing buildings right now. This is when everything comes to end of life, correct, Mr. Nelson? And then we would just replace at that point. Okay, so,
Total asset
Yeah.
asset management plan.
correct.
To come up with a new level of different level of service to reduce annual contribution to try and meet the plan. Meaning we could do more things with a different plan than we have today.
Correct.
So, yeah, okay.
So I think centralization would offer many benefits. I'm sure the Parks and Rec Department works with Public Works a lot, so I think centralizing it probably makes more sense operationally as well. Recreation-wise, I talked about this at budget, so I agree. I'm all in favor of reducing from 5 to 3. I think, the option that's recommended, I would support. So option 1 would be the one that I would support. I think it makes sense. And again, we're not closing them all today. This is future, so just to make that clear. And I think that was it, I think, too, for water sewer. It makes sense logically for us to spend a little bit of money on the xenon filtration, because at the end of the day, the more water we produce, the more money we can make, and the more partnerships you can create in the future. So that's it, I'm done talking.
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Councilor Ward. Other comments at this point? You said it all? Yeah, no, I think there's some good level of service discussions, decisions to make. Yeah, just want to think it through and get input and more discussions. Deputy Mayor, you want to add on?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor Broad. Yeah, and I keep going back to our buildings, and in particular our water and wastewater buildings, our facilities. I mean, there's the end of use life, but as long as we keep maintaining our infrastructure to a good high level, really our water and wastewater facilities should be endless in terms of a life cycle. So, again, the asset management plan has to show there's an end of a life, but I think, when I think about the Dunbar rec, I mean, it's a great building. Yeah, I think that building could last a long time before it needs to be replaced. Right. So, to your point, it's a plan, but it's at the end of it, when we do recognize that a facility we can't put any more money into it for some reason. That's when we have to come up with the options. I do like the sidewalk option. I know on, any new developments that I've been involved in rural or urban settings, even sidewalks on one side is something that we're not promoting. We do it in certain circumstances, collector roads, connections to schools, connections to parks. So I'm in favor of, when the sidewalks are done, not replace them both sides. I do think there are some streets like this street here that needs sidewalks, and whether it's both sides or not. But if they're well-used, high-level vehicle streets, maybe we still have the second sidewalk, but certainly peeling that back is something that we should be considering, and should be considering that immediately, to be honest with you, in implementing that. So, yeah, the other question I have, and it's not to be answered, I know that the South Branch Bridge was quite a hot topic about 6 years ago. And I know there was, I think at the time there were some thoughts that maybe the private owner could take over that road and that bridge at one time. Jeff, I'm not sure if you were involved with that or not. And I know that the council of the day was scared about insurance and what happens if something happens. But I think if we are going to explore that, we should exhaust all options of, if the homeowners want to maybe take over that portion of the road and the crossing. I'm not saying they do, don't get me wrong, I've had no discussions with them, but I know that that's been an occurrence at other times when we talked about closing the bridges and closing roads, that, well, we just can't, give the road away, even if there's waivers and all that signed, because there was that 1% risk that if something happened, it'd still come back in the municipality, but I gotta think that there's ways to get around that, so, just something to think about as well.
Yeah, no, very good for sure. Yeah, it'd be I said it earlier, it'd be interesting to look at the South Glengarry plan, go back to that presentation and just revisit that, on their, thought process. Any other, Manager Hyman, yeah.
So through you, Mayor Broad, just to offer a little context on the South Branch Bridge. So that is a gravel road that has 3 residents on that road, predominantly ag land. It is a narrow passageway, so large vehicles cannot pass over top of it. It's strictly half-ton small vehicles to the point where we cannot even plow across it. We have to send a tractor with a blade to clean off that portion of the bridge. 3 houses are immediately to the east of it, which benefit from the proximity to County Road 1, where the 4th house is closer to Gilmer Road, which would not impact them as much. But we do plow that gravel road in the wintertime. So it is a regular maintained gravel road, part of our network, just to offer a little context.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Yeah, no, lots of options. I think we should be moving. Oh, sorry, Councilor Ward, yeah, sorry.
Sorry, Mayor, I just had one question for Mr. Nelson, if I could. So you explained that with these proposed changes, it's $800,000 a reduction in what we currently need to contribute, correct?
Through you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, so I calculate an annual requirement based on the estimated useful life and replacement cost. And with all these changes, whether it's extending the useful life or reducing replacement cost, it would reduce the annual requirement. So it would be $800,000 less that we'd have to contribute per year.
Per year. And can I follow up
Yeah,
question?
yeah.
What is the current, like with the $800,000 reduction, what would that look like? Like how much is that roughly? Well, I know it's 800,000 less, but from what?
From
what
what we're not contributing today?
Yes, exactly.
I know what you.
Through you, Mayor Broad, I'm not sure if this answers your question, but initially we were at, or current levels of service, we're at 12.6 million, and it would bring us down to about 11.8. So 94% of what it was before.
And
Just-
we're to contribute 11.8 per year?
Right.
Ooh, and we're obviously not even close to that. Okay. All right, just for context for myself, thank you.
Yeah, so on that, the asset management plan, our requirement, 12.6, making changes gets us 11.8. One of the comments I was going to say, CO Mills.
Okay, through you, Mr. Mayor. I want to add a few things related to what AMO, or Association of the Municipalities of Ontario, have come out with about the 3 top challenges that we're facing, and they're going to come out with a pre-budget consultation, a letter, and a report in January. The first one they identify as infrastructure, and that there's no structured or organized or plan of action from the province, and I think that also includes some federal money. The second thing is that, and we're seeing it, that was after our last budget meeting, that taxation, and Councillor Smith brought it up tonight, taxation is not going to sustain or get us where we want to get, that it's not sustainable to continue with high taxes to meet the needs that we have. And also for affordable place to live, that was the third one, and all the barriers that come along with that and what we're faced with in all of the lower tiers and all municipalities around here. So as we prepare for our next meeting together, which will be a budget meeting, I've just written down a list of all of the ways we generate revenue, and I'm sure I forgot one, but the obvious one is taxation. Then we get grants regularly from the grants we get from the government, and then the ones we apply for. Fees and licensing and permits, which we probably just maybe need to take another look at. Selling some assets, so there are some assets that were identified there that we either want to mothball or we've done a land inventory, and then we can invest funds and get investment back. The interest rates are going down though, so But then you look at the costs, and I've mentioned infrastructure, our operations, and then we've just identified our service levels. The capital costs, our fleet, the fire plan came out tonight, all of the things related to facilities. And then there's also a consideration, we have borrowed money, and we're probably going to consider borrowing some more at the next budget meeting or bring something forward. So I just wanted to end with that. So first, thank you, Mr. Nelson, for all your hard work, and to all the directors and everybody who contributed to this through finance, to be able to get this together and present it in this manner and do it I think everybody's pretty happy. It's 8:25 and we've got through the asset management plan and it's very clear. But I leave it to council now that when we come back on January 13th, staff has put out, what we think in terms of operations, service, and a capital plan, and what it means to taxation. Now we've gotten a presentation related to our asset management plan and some options for council to consider with service delivery. And, maybe we want to keep it as is, but there are some really good options there for you to consider, along with some other things I've mentioned, that when you come back on January 13th, we can have a really good conversation about it and make some decisions.
Yeah, and I think what I don't know, and maybe we do know, or we need to find out, is having the asset plan, having a plan for your asset plan, is that a benefit for funding or not? And, or if we create a good plan and are doing the work, should we be lobbying, hey, municipalities that are doing a good job should be getting the funding over municipalities that maybe aren't, right? So those are the things that, maybe Deputy Mayor and I can, search out with MPP Quinn, right, from a provincial standpoint, and start to understand, like, of the 440, Roma, we're going to be there, right? Like, we can engage with other municipalities, right, to say, like, how can we, where is there more funding? Is there more for infrastructure, right? Like, we have, Eastern Ontario Warden's Caucus, and we sent a note, we're $6 billion deficit on infrastructure, right? So, we're doing everything we can. We're deciding whether we have 5 rec halls or 3, right? What can provincially they do to help us in some of the bigger ticket items? So those are the things that we need to understand as well to add to that plan, and what we should be advocating for, right? Maybe we're advocating for the wrong thing, and that's why we're not successful. That's maybe. Anyways, just food for thought, I would think, on that, Deputy Mayor.
No, and I agree with you, and I think if the provincial government and federal government would fund more social programs as they should, then that allows us as municipal governments to concentrate on our infrastructure, and that could be part of that balance, right?
Right.
So,
roads, recreation,
exactly.
water, wastewater.
Exactly. What's a direct impact?
Right.
Sorry, and I'm not saying social isn't a direct impact to us, but in terms of the budget, infrastructure management is the direct impact in what we need to secure, right? So if the provincial governments would step up on the social, OPP, ambulance service, all that stuff, that dictated a 3.08% increase in our county budget. If they looked after all that, then we could look after our infrastructure and in-house infrastructure, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's great. Direction for Mr. Nelson. I guess let's come back with some recommendations so that we can start to implement on some of these items we kind of discussed, and then we can have further discussion. Or I think what would be important too is like what the timeline, like to Councilor Ward's point, when do we think the municipal garages are wrapping up? Is this a 2030, like a rough timeline of when some of these things may as we're thinking about those going forward, right? Then give folks an idea what, when is the sidewalk, on the street out of use and not going to be there anymore, right? Because that's not, when's it due? That's right. Yeah. Some dates on some of those. Give us a feel for what we're signing up for on the level of service. Okay. Any other discussions on that? All right. Thank you very much. Notice of motion. I have a resolution on the provincial land tax transfer. This was asked for last time, so I have a resolution. Whereas municipalities face growing infrastructure needs, including roads, bridges, public transit, water systems, and other capital critical services, which are essential to community well-beings and development. And whereas whereas the current sources of municipal revenue, including property taxes and user fees, are insufficient to meet these increasing demands for infrastructure investment. And whereas the provincial government of Ontario currently collects the land transfer tax on property transactions in municipalities across the province, generating significant revenue that is not directly shared with municipalities. And whereas the federal government collects GST on property transactions, a portion of which could be directed to municipalities to address local infrastructure needs. And whereas redistributing a portion of the provincial land transfer tax and GST to municipalities would provide a predictable, sustainable source of funding for local infrastructure projects without creating a new tax burdens on residents or home buyers. Whereas a redistribution of portion of land transfer tax and GST would allow municipalities to better plan and invest in long-term infrastructure initiatives, supporting local growth and improving quality of life for residents. Number one, now therefore be resolved, the Council of Municipality of South Dundas formally requests the provincial government to consider redistributing a portion of the land transfer tax collected on property transactions to municipalities. And two, be further resolved that the Municipality of South Dundas call on the federal government to allocate a percentage of GST collected on property sales to municipalities. And three, be it further resolved that the redistribution of the land tax transfer and GST should be structured to provide predictable and sustainable funding to municipalities, allowing for better long-term planning and investment in infrastructure projects that benefit local communities, thus ensuring the local governments receive a fair share of the revenue to address critical infrastructure needs. And four, be it further resolved, there's only five, that copies of the resolution be forwarded to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, Premier Ford, the Ontario Minister of Finance, the Minister of Municipal Affairs and Housing, local members of Parliament and provincial Parliament. And five, let it be resolved that copies of the resolution be forwarded and called to all 400 municipalities in Ontario, Federation of Municipalities, and the Association of Municipalities, AMO. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Deputy Mayor St. Pierre. All in favor? Carried. So right along the same lines of what we just discussed, right? Opportunity for us to get funding. Notice of motion, Councillor Ward mentioned about communications on, drain procedures, right? Go ahead, I won't put it in your
Yeah,
words.
thanks, Mayor. So I think to Councillor Smith's earlier point as well, I think if we just do a little bit of communication to both maybe the DFA, as well as the, just residents. I think we do have a good education section on the website to Chris's, good job, but I think maybe just a little bit more, maybe awareness. I don't know if communications wise, we can start sharing that as Councillor Smith alluded to, it'll be more and more, so.
Could be one of our minute by minute updates.
Yeah.
It could be a box on that mail out we do,
Yeah,
taxes. It
absolutely,
could
yeah.
do some educational segments on that, and we can also tie together, drains and or building permits, right? Because those are two areas that, we see that kind of repeat opportunities over and over again. Clerk LeBrun, you're good on that? Thank you very much. No, it's just a part of discussion. Request, yeah. Come back, yeah. Gotta get it in the right spot. Yeah. Okay, ratification bylaw, bylaw 2024-88 be a bylaw to adopt and confirm, ratify matters dealt with resolution read, passed, and open council signed and sealed. Moved by Councillor Ward, seconded by Councillor Vino. All in favor? Carried. And a motion to adjourn at the call of the chair. Councillor Ward, Councillor Smith, all in favor? All right, as we bring our meeting to a close for December the 11th, 2024. It concludes our meeting schedule for the year of 2024. So thank you to staff and the council team and all our delegations throughout the year, media, and all our guests that have participated in our council meetings. You make the team what we are today, and I thank you for all of that. To all of us, all the residents, Merry Christmas and Happy Holidays. And we look forward to kicking off 2025 with a budget meeting and several other meetings. We have Roma delegations to go to, a busy January ahead of us. So with that being said,